Taylor Kitsch. He had everything going for him: good looks, charisma, and a breakout role on Friday Night Lights that had everyone buzzing. After that, Hollywood handed him some of the biggest chances imaginable. He starred in John Carter, a movie Disney bet over $200 million on, but it bombed hard. Not just a flop, one of the most expensive misfires in movie history. Then came Battleship, which somehow managed to be worse, and that was a back-to-back disaster. People started calling him box office poison. Even when he had a strong performance in Savages, nobody showed up. It didn't help that in Lone Survivor his role was solid, but the spotlight went elsewhere. He kept landing parts, but nothing stuck. Hollywood moved on fast. He had the potential, no doubt, but his project choices tanked his rise. Taylor Kitsch could have been huge, but those flops buried his momentum for good. Josh Hartnett. He was everywhere in the early 2000s, set up as the next leading man. With roles in Pearl Harbor, Black Hawk Down, and 40 Days and 40 Nights, he had the face, the range, and the box office numbers. But then he started saying no. A lot. He turned down Spider-Man, Batman Begins, and Superman Returns. Those roles made legends, and he passed on all of them. Studios stopped chasing him. He even appeared in Trapped, a thriller that came and went without making any noise. Instead of blockbuster leads, he leaned into indie films that didn't connect. His career drifted while his peers took off. He even admitted later he pulled back from fame on purpose, which is fine, but it's not how you stay an A-lister. Hartnett didn't get pushed out, he chose to leave the game. And in doing so, he gave up movie legend status. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Lindsay Lohan. She had everything lined up. Mean Girls made her a star, and before that, Freaky Friday proved she had serious talent. She wasn't just another teen actor, she had timing, screen presence, and critics on her side. But after that, it unraveled fast. She started missing sets, got into legal trouble, and headlines about her personal life became bigger than any of her movies. Films like I Know, Who Killed Me, and Labor Pains were disasters. Directors didn't want to risk it, and studios stopped calling. Her attempt at a comeback with the Canyons flopped badly, and even her reality shows didn't land. She became more famous for nightclubs than roles. Talent wasn't the issue, discipline and choices were. She had a real shot at long-term stardom, but the work stopped, and so did the chances. Lohan didn't lose her skill, she just lost her place in the game. Shia LaBeouf. He broke out fast with Holes, then hit blockbuster status with Transformers. By the time Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came around, he looked unstoppable. But then it got messy. He started clashing with directors, got arrested multiple times, and turned every press appearance into a controversy. Even when he tried to shift into indie films like Honey Boy and American Honey, the chaos followed. His public behavior overshadowed every role. Then came serious accusations of abuse, which shut down most industry support. He had talent, no doubt. Performances in Fury and even Lawless showed he could go deep. But nobody wanted the risk. He didn't just fall out of favor, he burned bridges along the way. He could have stayed a headliner for decades, but the personal storms drowned the career. The roles stopped, not because he wasn't good, but because nobody could trust him. Armie Hammer. He looked like Hollywood's next leading man. 6'5", classic looks, and a breakout performance in The Social Network playing twins. Then Call Me By Your Name happened, and suddenly he was getting serious awards attention. But instead of building on that, he made strange career moves. Movies like The Lone Ranger and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. underperformed badly. Then came the scandal, disturbing messages, allegations of abuse, and a full-blown investigation. He lost agency representation, film deals, and public support almost overnight. Projects dropped him before filming even started. What made it worse was that he had already been fighting uphill to prove he wasn't just a handsome guy. His career needed consistency, but instead it imploded. Hammer had the right roles lined up, the platform, and the recognition, but the cannibalism controversy wiped out all momentum. He didn't just blow his shot, he scorched the entire path behind him. Hayden Christensen. He landed the role of Anakin Skywalker, one of the most iconic characters ever in Star Wars. That alone should have set him up for a lifetime of top-tier roles. But it didn't. Critics slammed his performances in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith for being wooden and stiff. He had some good projects before that, like Life as a House, but once Star Wars hit, the backlash stuck. After the trilogy, he vanished from major roles. Jumper was supposed to be his comeback, but it flopped hard. Then Takers came and went without impact, he didn't show up in big films anymore, and his acting style just didn't evolve. He stepped away from the industry, choosing a quieter life, but by then, the buzz was gone. Hayden had the chance to turn global fame into a powerhouse career, but the performances never caught up with the spotlight. Taylor Lautner. He skyrocketed with Twilight, becoming a household name almost overnight. His transformation for New Moon turned him into a teen icon, and studios took notice. But after the franchise ended, things fell apart. Abduction was supposed to launch him as an action star. It flopped. Then came Tracers and Run the Tide, both ignored. Unlike his Twilight co-stars, he didn't pivot into critically respected roles. He stuck with bland scripts and low-budget thrillers that didn't challenge him or grow his range. His acting was often called flat, and the industry stopped offering big parts. By the time he joined a sitcom like Cuckoo, it felt like a retreat, not a comeback. He had massive visibility, but nothing meaningful followed. The window closed fast. Lautner didn't fade because of scandal or burnout. He just didn't pick the right roles when it counted. And the hype that made him famous moved on without him. Mira Sorvino. She won an Oscar for Mighty Aphrodite and seemed destined for a huge career. She had the talent, charm, and range to take on anything. But after that early peak, the roles got smaller and less memorable. Movies like The Replacement Killers and Romy and Michelle's high school reunion had their moments, but didn't keep her momentum going. Behind the scenes, things were worse. She later revealed that rejecting Harvey Weinstein's advances led to her being blacklisted by major studios. Directors confirmed she was blocked from projects she was perfect for. Her career never fully recovered from that. She kept working, but in TV movies and small roles, far from the spotlight she earned. It wasn't a lack of skill, she was pushed out. Sorvino had what it took to stay at the top, but the industry turned on her for speaking up. Her fall wasn't fair, but it was real. Cuba Gooding Jr. He won an Oscar for Jerry Maguire and delivered one of the most quoted lines in movie history. After that, he should have been unstoppable, but instead of building on it, he picked one bad role after another. Chill Factor, Boat Trip, and Snow Dogs didn't just flop, they tanked his credibility. He became known for loud, over-the-top performances in films nobody respected. Even when he tried to bounce back with drama, the damage was done. He dipped into direct-to-video territory fast. Years later, he got attention again for playing O.J. Simpson, but it didn't last. Then came serious legal troubles, including multiple accusations of sexual misconduct, which wrecked any remaining goodwill. Gooding had the talent, the recognition, and the spotlight, but he burned through all of it with bad choices and controversy. He didn't just fall off, he plummeted from the A-list hard. Katherine Heigl. She became a star fast with Knocked Up and Grey's Anatomy, landing romantic comedy leads and dominating headlines. For a while, she was everywhere, but then she started publicly criticizing the very projects that made her famous. She called Knocked Up sexist and withdrew herself from Emmy consideration, blaming the writing on Grey's. That didn't sit well with anyone. Studios and creators saw her as ungrateful and difficult. Then came a streak of forgettable films like One for the Money and The Ugly Truth that failed to impress critics or audiences. Her reputation hurt her more than the box office did. Offers dried up, and she ended up in smaller roles on streaming shows years later. She had everything lined up: success, visibility, fan support, but she blew it with the wrong words at the worst time. Heigl didn't fade because of talent. She talked herself right out of stardom. Freddie Prinze Jr. He was the go-to heartthrob in the late 90s with hits like She's All That and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Teen audiences loved him, and Hollywood took notice. But once that wave passed, he struggled to evolve. His attempts at leading roles in films like Summer Catch and Head Over Heels fell flat. Even Scooby-Doo, which was a hit, didn't turn into lasting momentum. He tried television, starring in his own sitcom that was canceled after one season. Roles dried up and he shifted behind the scenes, working in voice acting and even with World Wrestling Entertainment. He later admitted he didn't love acting and felt disconnected from the industry. He had the spotlight, the fan base, and the opportunity to stay relevant, but he didn't keep chasing it. Prince didn't crash out, he coasted out. And just like that, his star power quietly vanished. Edward Furlong. He exploded onto the scene as John Connor in Terminator 2, and people thought he was the next big thing. He followed it up with strong performances in American History X and Detroit Rock City, showing he could go dark and complex. But his personal life started to unravel fast. He battled substance abuse, had multiple arrests, and was hit with domestic violence accusations. His reputation crashed, and Hollywood stopped calling. He was even recast in Terminator 3, a role that should have been his. Instead of climbing higher, he disappeared into low-budget horror films and direct-to-video projects. His talent never fully went away, but his off-screen issues kept destroying any chance at a comeback. Furlong had the look, the screen presence, and early success, but he burned through all of it. What could have been a long career turned into a cautionary tale almost overnight. Taryn Manning. She showed serious potential early on with standout roles in Hustle and Flow and 8 Mile, proving she could hold her own in intense, gritty dramas. Then Orange Is the New Black gave her a huge second chance, and her performance as Pennsatucky earned critical praise. But instead of using that momentum to level up, her off-screen behavior took over. She had multiple arrests, public meltdowns, and bizarre social media rants that made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Directors and studios started steering clear. Even though she had the acting chops, her name became tied to chaos. projects dried up and she leaned into music and reality-style appearances that never landed. She had a golden shot with a career resurgence, but didn't run with it. Manning didn't lose work because of talent. She lost it because the drama off-camera kept outshining the work she did on it. Jonathan Rhys Meyers. He had everything: leading man looks, a magnetic presence, and roles in major films like Match Point and Mission Impossible 3. Then The Tudors happened, and he became a household name, earning critical acclaim and awards attention. But behind the scenes, his life was spiraling. He battled severe alcohol addiction, faced multiple arrests, and was even banned from flying by airlines after drunken incidents. Studios grew wary. He checked into rehab several times, but the headlines never stopped. Even when he landed roles later, like in Vikings or smaller indie films, his off-screen issues kept overshadowing them. He had all the tools to stay on top, but the chaos derailed everything. He didn't just fall off. He became a risk no one wanted to take. Rhys Meyers had the talent for a long, elite career, but the personal battles kept pulling him away from the spotlight he once owned. Rachel Lee Cook. She hit big with She's All That, instantly becoming a teen icon. Her performance was everywhere, and the movie's success should have launched her into a string of lead roles. But that never happened. She followed it with Josie and the Pussycats, which flopped at the box office despite gaining a cult following later. After that, the offers got smaller. She stuck with low-budget indies and straight-to DVD releases that never reached a wide audience. She never got that second breakout role to keep her momentum going. While she kept working, she faded from the mainstream. She even turned to Hallmark-style films, which didn't help rebuild her profile. The industry moved on, and she became known more for nostalgia than new work. Cook had the charm and audience recognition, but her career never found a second gear. She didn't burn out, she just quietly slipped out of the big picture. Orlando Bloom. He was part of two of the biggest franchises ever, The Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean. For a while, he was everywhere, with blockbuster after blockbuster. But once those series wrapped up, things got quiet. He tried to lead his own films like Elizabethtown and Kingdom of Heaven, but neither connected with audiences. Critics slammed his performances as bland, and he never quite shook that label. Without the ensemble cast around him, he struggled to carry movies on his own. He stayed active with smaller films and occasional franchise returns, but the star power faded. Even his high-profile relationship headlines couldn't keep him in the spotlight. He had the exposure and the roles most actors dream of, but he never built on them. Bloom didn't crash, he just coasted while others passed him by. The opportunity for movie legend status slipped right through his hands. Brittany Murphy. She broke out in Clueless and proved she had serious range with roles in Girl Interrupted and 8 Mile. She had the voice, the energy, and could flip between comedy and drama like it was nothing. For a while, she was everywhere. Big films, red carpets, and rising fast. But then, the roles got worse. She ended up in a string of low-quality thrillers and forgettable comedies that didn't show off her talent. Rumors about her health, erratic behavior, and personal life started to overshadow her work. Hollywood pulled back. She was dropped from projects and her career slowed down dramatically. Then came her sudden, tragic death at 32, surrounded by speculation and unanswered questions. Murphy had all the ingredients for long-term success, but her career took a sharp, heartbreaking turn. She didn't just fade, she left behind a sense of what could have been if things had gone differently. Alex Pettyfer. He looked like a star from day one, with his breakout in Stormbreaker and teen idol status quickly following. Then came I Am Number 4, which was supposed to kick off a huge franchise. It bombed. Even Magic Mike, where he held his own alongside heavyweights, didn't boost his career like it should have. Behind the scenes, things were worse. Reports of bad behavior, on-set feuds, and clashes with directors started piling up. Hollywood noticed. He got labeled difficult, and the offers stopped coming. He tried leading roles in indie films, but none made an impact. Unlike his co-stars, he didn't pivot or grow into more complex parts. The industry cooled on him fast. He had the look, the platform, and the opportunity to become a fixture in big movies, but his choices and his reputation cut it short. Pettyfer didn't just miss his shot, he practically pushed it away. Jamie Kennedy. He made a name for himself fast with the Scream franchise and his wild character in Malibu's Most Wanted. For a minute, it looked like he was going to carve out a solid spot in comedy. But instead of evolving, he leaned into gimmicks. The Jamie Kennedy experiment had its fans, but once that ended, so did most of his mainstream visibility. Then came Son of the Mask, one of the most brutally panned comedies ever, and it crushed his momentum. He became more known for flops than hits. He tried stand-up and low-budget horror, but nothing stuck. His attempts at reinvention never took off, and the projects he picked felt like step-downs every time. Talent wasn't the issue, it was direction. Kennedy never found a second act, and Hollywood moved on without him. What started as a promising comedy career ended up buried under a pile of bad choices and worse scripts. Brandon Roth. He was handed the keys to the kingdom with Superman Returns, stepping into one of the most iconic roles in film history. The movie did fine at the box office, but critics and fans felt it lacked energy. and Ruth's performance was called forgettable. Instead of boosting his career, it stalled it. He didn't land another major film lead after that. Hollywood didn't give him a second shot at superstardom. He ended up in smaller roles and direct-to-video action films. Even when he joined the Arrowverse years later as Ray Palmer, it felt more like a nostalgic side gig than a real comeback. He had the look, the stature, and the platform. But the post-Superman choices never reignited his career. Roth didn't crash, he just drifted away from the spotlight. He had a shot to join the top tier, but the follow-through never came. His moment passed quickly. Rob Schneider. He started strong with Saturday Night Live and quickly became a familiar face in comedies, especially alongside Adam Sandler. Deuce Bigalow was a surprise hit, and for a while, he was a reliable comedy sidekick. But then came The Animal, The Hot Chick, and a string of movies that leaned heavily on recycled jokes and stereotypes. Critics tore them apart, and audiences started losing interest. His humor didn't evolve, and the roles felt stuck in one note. As Sandler's movies got bigger, Schneider's parts got smaller or disappeared entirely. He tried launching his own projects, but none took off. Then his political rants and anti-science stances online pushed him further out of mainstream favor. He had the name recognition and the early platform, but he never grew beyond the same shtick. Schneider didn't just fizzle out, he stayed in the same lane until nobody was watching anymore. Ray Liotta. He delivered a legendary performance in Goodfellas, a role that cemented him as a serious talent with raw intensity. After that, he had momentum, starring in the solid films like Narc and Copland, but he never quite returned to that peak. He passed on big opportunities and often took roles in forgettable thrillers or straight-to-video projects that didn't match his talent. His choices skewed toward quantity over quality, and his name started showing up in smaller, less respected releases. Even when he popped up in higher profile projects like Hannibal or Identity, he was never the lead again. He became typecast as the tough guy or the crooked cop, and Hollywood rarely gave him anything different. He kept working steadily, but the big roles stopped coming. Liotta had the screen presence and ability to stay elite, but his career never reached the heights that early promise suggested. Eric Bana. He broke out with Chopper, a performance that had critics raving, then jumped straight into Hollywood with Black Hawk Down and Hulk. He had the look, the presence, and serious acting chops. But Hulk didn't land like it was supposed to, and his shot at superhero fame fizzled fast. After that, his roles in Troy and Munich showed promise, but neither turned him into a consistent A-lister. Hollywood didn't seem to know what to do with him, he wasn't cast as a leading man often enough, and when he was, the movies didn't connect. He took more roles back in Australia, where he still got strong reviews, but he never found a steady footing in big-budget films again. He had the range to do anything, but the projects never matched his potential. He didn't fall off. He just never found the right track to stay in the spotlight. Emile Hirsch. He broke out with strong performances in The Girl Next Door and Lords of Dogtown, then truly impressed with Into the Wild, earning critical acclaim and serious awards buzz. It looked like he was headed straight for the A-list. But then came Speed Racer, a big budget gamble that flopped hard. After that, his film choices became inconsistent. He took roles in indie films that didn't break through and missed the kind of mainstream follow-ups that build lasting careers. Then in 2015, he was charged with assault during Sundance, and that severely damaged his reputation. The incident made headlines and studios backed off. He kept acting, mostly in low-profile projects, but never regained momentum. Hirsch had real talent, but his career never recovered from the combination of poor role choices and personal controversy. He didn't fade because he couldn't act. He faded because the industry moved on without him. Jonathan Majors. He emerged as a powerhouse with standout roles in Creed 3 and Devotion, earning praise for his intensity and range. Hollywood took notice and cast him as a Marvel star in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, opening the door to major blockbuster status. Things looked promising, but then allegations of assault surfaced, triggering a police investigation and a public relations disaster. Marvel and his agency paused, and studios stepped away from any upcoming projects. That personal controversy instantly overshadowed his talent, turning industry support into caution. Before that, Majors was building a reputation as the next big thing. He had charisma, critical acclaim, and superhero credentials. Instead, the headlines became louder than the buzz about his work. He didn't fumble due to weak performances, he lost ground because trust evaporated fast. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.